and New York is the East Coast. And so welcome everyone to Kira Grace. I'm so happy to be here. People are still joining. A lot of you have my cell. I know Kira has my cell. So just go ahead and text me if we lose any kind of technical or if I start to freeze because I won't know. If you text me on the chat, I will be the last to know if I've frozen. I'll find out when I watch the recording. And the other thing to tell you, I put this in the chat, is that I'm an alignment teacher. We're a little different. We like to make our lives harder and more miserable, so that when 2020 comes, that we're like okay with that. And so the reason I tell you that is that it would be great if you had blocks today and maybe a blanket. Blocks and a blanket, and then a chair. I'm going to use a chair, but you don't have to have a chair like a dining chair. You can have a couch or any kind of a ledge if you're outside, and that will work. So because I'm an alignment teacher, I welcome, and because this is Zoom, I welcome you to interrupt me. I've got my headphones on, so just interrupt and ask a question. And here's my 2 cents on a question, which is that if you have the question about the alignment, then other people have it too. There's no such thing as a question in a vacuum in a yoga class. If I wasn't clear on something, first of all, I don't take offense. I don't have that gene. But if I wasn't clear on an instruction and you have a question, please unmute yourself and ask it. And then when you're done, go ahead and re-mute yourself, because otherwise we'll hear you guys cursing. We'll hear you guys saying things like, God, I hate this class. And so that's just between you and your own mind. And so having said that, welcome. My name is Michelle Marchildon. I'm delighted to be a Kira Grace ambassador. And I'm also delighted to bring us together on these Saturdays for our yoga. So today's topic is called PTG, and this is a real thing. This is an absolute real thing, which is called post-traumatic growth. And so there's a science study. I was reading it in the New York Times 3 weeks ago. There was a science study, and it talked about trauma. And it talked about how is it, and I'm sure all of you guys know somebody or several people who went through a similar trauma, and some of them came out better and stronger, and some of them, it broke them. And so there's not like a right or wrong way to go through a trauma. It is just what happens. It's part of life. But according to the scientists, only 10% of people, 10 to 30%, which is less than half, come out better. And I would like to say, oh, if you practice yoga, you'll be in the 70%, like you'll for sure come out better after trauma, but I can't guarantee that. I can only show you there's 3 characteristics. I know this is really boring, but I'm into it, so hang with me. So there's 3 characteristics of how is it that you'll be in the 10% that survive 2020, that is, trauma. And the first one is that people who survive trauma and grow from it, they don't treat happiness as a goal. So everything I wrote in my book with Desiree Rumbaugh called Fearless After 50, disregard that, because I wrote about how important it was to have happiness as a goal. But happiness is not a goal. Happiness is what you make of it in this moment. You have to squeeze every bit of pleasure that you can out of every moment that you're alive, even the bad ones. And those are the people who can survive. Number 2, people who survive trauma tend to relish the tiniest moments. And you know, my mom, she was just so good at this. We would tease her, but of course now I realize she had the answer. She would sit down at every meal and she'd be like, oh, this is absolutely divine. And I was like, it's scrambled eggs. She goes, it's so wonderful that you made it for me. She took pleasure out of every single moment, and that's something that we want to strive for. And the next thing is you make your own well-being a priority. And so it's not like for later, it's not like for after you vacuum, it's not like for after 2020. Your well-being is a priority for this moment, in this second, in this practice. And so I want you to take those 3 things to heart, and that is how we're going to practice today, is to make all those things really key for us. So the first thing we're going to do today, and again, just interrupt me if I've gone off the deep end or if I've lost you, is I want you to sit up on something. So if you sit on a block, that's totally fine. I like to sit on a blanket because it keeps the curve. Check out this outfit. So it keeps the curve in your tail. And so it's not a big curve, it's just a little bit of a curve so you don't round. And so here, any kind of easy seat, and you're gonna take your hands in like a mitten, thumb and fingers, and put your thumbs right in your hip flexors. Now I want you to press down and back. And so if this isn't miserable enough as you press down and back, I want you to lift from the bottom of your rib cage so that you make more length in your torso. And so the purpose of sometimes of yoga is, sometimes the purpose is to come to your mat and chill, but I take my yoga to make my well-being better. And so today's class is going to be hip flexors and shoulders. So you push down on your hips and lift your torso. This should feel good. And take your right hand to the right. I can't mirror, so you can do both. You could do it with me, that's all right. Right hand to the right and push down, and you're just lifting the left side and pushing the left hip flexor down. So I know Jennifer Wilford is a runner. This class is really good for runners and anyone who exercises, because our hip flexors take a lot. The other reason I chose to do hips and shoulders today is that when we're in times of stress, like this year, when we're in times of stress, go ahead and switch your side. So the other hand down, press your thumb and forefinger, like your thumb and mitten hand, right on your hip flexor and push down. And then finagle away to get longer in that side of your body. So you're pulling up from the bottom of your ribs. And so sometimes when you practice yoga like this, it doesn't actually look like yoga. It doesn't look like a sun A or like a pretty pose, but what it feels like is more important. And what it feels like is that moment of happiness. It feels like you're taking control of the tiniest thing that you can take control of, which is you and how you feel in the moment. That's all we really can change or affect. And then bring your legs together and give yourself a hug. And so I'm doing this theme because one of our warriors in her GoFundMe is in the, it's in the chat. She lost everything in the California fires. You're gonna take one hand behind you. Now I might use a block. Otherwise, you're just gonna hold your knees and take one hand behind you. Squeeze your knees together. Now lengthen that torso up. So just like we push our thighs down before, now you get really long and twist over to the right. So Leslie Collins, she lost everything, and I was really moved by this. Of course, I feel terrible for her. I sent her a lot of clothes and money, whatever. But the reason I was really moved by this is there was a time in my life when I lost everything too, and then come on back. And you take your right hand to your knees and your left hand behind. So remember, it's not just a twist, it's a lifting up. And you lift up from your chest like you're not afraid. That's how you lift up. At the same time, you ground your hips down into a blanket or onto your mat. Doesn't really matter. I think you'll survive either way. So there was this time I lost absolutely everything. And it's a crazy story. It's in my first book called Finding More on the Mat. Oh, it feels so good. I can't stop. Sorry. And then come on back to the center. And now we're going to go on to our back. The other thing I want to tell you about losing everything, because I've lost everything twice in my life. And that's so much fun. Take your hands into your mitten hands. So you've got your thumb and four fingers together, and put your thumb back into your hip flexors and push them down. And then here on your back, lift your shoulders. Just try to get longer in your torso, and you should feel a nice release in your psoas, hip flexors, and outer hips. It should feel just fabulous. It feels good to me. And then from here, hug in. So I've lost everything exactly twice in my life. I'm just going to tell you about the first time. It was my starter marriage. Go ahead and take happy upward facing baby and just rock. And in my starter marriage, there came a time when my husband accepted a job in Arizona. We were in Ohio, and we were all set to move. He got a moving truck, and he loaded everything we owned into the moving truck. And then the movers moved, and he took the car that we owned and followed them. Now you're going to take your feet to the mat and hop your hips to the right. Drop your knees together to the left. So this is a simple supine twist. But remember, I can make everything more difficult. Take your left hand on top of the right knee. Now pause. What I want you to do is to lift your right knee a little bit, but push down on your left hand. That should engage your rib line here, and then take your right hip away. So you're moving that right hip down. For extra sauce, you can take your right arm up. So if you look like me, you're doing it pretty right. You should, by pushing down with this bind, create more resistance. It's like more trauma And then you're gonna just find more pleasure in the moment by taking that right hip down. So he loaded everything on the mover's truck. The movers left. He loaded all his stuff into the car. He left. And from the road, he called to say he was moving with his mistress. Can't make this up. Come on down, move your hips to the left, drop your knees right. Take your right hand on top of the left knee, and then as you lift the left knee up, you're pushing down. So your left knee only comes up maybe an inch. Now take your whole left hip down and back. Oh, feels so good. And then if you want extra sauce, take your left arm up. Keep your shoulder blade tucked into the mat. And this should really give you some nice release over on the left side of your body. And so I tell you this little story because when this happened to Leslie, I have to say it really affected me because it brought me back to my own experience when I lost everything. I had no home, I had no car, I had given notice at my job, and I had no stuff. And so here's what I can tell you for sure. Come on back to the center and take your right leg high, knit your fingers behind it, and just take Supta Pandangusthasana. So you're stretching out the back of your right hamstring. Here's what I know for sure about losing everything, which is that what you're left with is the good stuff. It strips away the parts of you that are not important. And what you're left with is the part of you that's the most resilient part. It's like the nut, it's like the heart inside. And that's really all we need. But it takes a big lesson. Go ahead and take half happy baby, grab your foot, pull it down. Now, I want you just to take your ribs away from the leg. And so that should target your hip a little bit more. So you're taking that rib line, push it down and move it away from the right leg that's in half happy baby. So you don't get the full pleasure, the full misery of the experience until you move that rib line away. Now, if this is too difficult, just take the left sole of your foot and you'll get the same access to the same body part that I'm working. And then we'll switch, take the left leg, knit your fingers behind the thigh, straighten the leg, find some kind of hamstring opening. The other thing I learned from having lost everything once or twice in my life is that not only are we stronger than we know, but sometimes it takes a stripping away of the BS to figure that out. So we learn our inner resilience, we learn how strong we are, and then we learn this last really important thing, and that is what's important in life. So maybe the stuff we lost, the material stuff, maybe some of it wasn't that important. Go ahead and grab your foot and take half happy baby. So if you're really tight and I can't access it, you take your right foot and put it on the ground. And then wherever you are, you take your ribs, push them down and then move them away. Oh. So they may only move like a 1/4 inch. They may move a whole lot. Depends on how mobile you are. Mine only move like, I'm not sure they actually go anywhere because I'm very short-waisted. But I can feel when I start to move my ribs away from the leg, I feel a lot more intensity in the groins, and that's what we're seeking here. And then come on back. Let me get my list of things to do. And then from here, take reverse tabletop. And I want you to take your arms to the right side and put your elbow on the side of your knee. Now remember that twist we did on the ground. Push your elbow against the knee and then take your hips down and away. Oh my gosh. And so you'll find a big twist right here. You don't have to go any further. So this is going to look a lot like our, oh my gosh, this feels so good. This is going to look a lot like our peak pose for today. So remember, if you can't do that pose, you can probably do this pose. And then come on back. You're in reverse tabletop, knees squeeze together. Take your right arm to the outside of the left knee. Straighten your arms. Now this is not interesting until you take the hips away. And as you take the hips away, your torso gets longer and brighter, and you can feel the pose throughout your entire core. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for more. We're not looking for less of an experience in life. We're looking for more. And so what does that mean? That means we don't shy away from the bad. Oh, that felt really good. Oh, I'm kicking my own rear. And then help yourself up to a nice, comfortable seat. Oh, I have a couple more here. Come back onto your back. This is what happens when you get really old. Come back onto your back. Hug your knees into your chest and extend the left leg long. Then wrap your fingers around the right knee and pull it in. And take that foot into your upper thigh. So this is tree pose on your back. Take your hands in your mitten hand, put it right on the top of your hips and push them down. And here you are in tree, and then lift your shoulders. And so sometimes when you're in a place of trauma, you can't do the hardest poses. It may not be the right time to try to balance, but you can do the poses in some way. And so we're doing them on the ground. And if this is what you got, then this is what you got. And then go ahead and switch. The right leg comes down, you knit your fingers around the left knee, pull it in, and then put that foot right on the inner thigh or wherever it goes for you. Hands to your waist. As you ground and anchor your hips down, lift your torso or lengthen the torso so that you can feel like you're taller and brighter, like you're ready for just a little bit more. Oh, it feels really good. I feel good today. Okay, one more thing on our back. Lie on your right side. This is called watching television pose. Take your left arm up in the air. You're going to put it in front of you, and then you're just going to walk it around to the back. And so this is a very gentle way to start our shoulders. And so everyone knows, well, not everyone, but I'm going to tell you that we store stress in the shoulders. You know, it looks a lot like the texting look, like you're all scrunched up. And just move your arm around. This is from neuroscience. And so find the place where it's tightest and then just let it hang. And so there's a stress we store in our shoulders and there's a stress we store in our hips. And of course, today I'm going into both areas because I'm badass that way. And I just think that the only way to address how you're feeling, how your well-being is to literally address it, to go into it, don't ignore it. Let's switch to the other side. So you'll lie in TV watching pose. If you watch on a couch, you're lying on your left side, take your right arm up, bring it forward, and then kind of swoosh it around. And so you're looking for it to just hang and stretch gently behind you. You're not looking for anything violent here. Anyone who's ever had a stress or a violence or a trauma in their life, you don't go looking for more. But you do want to practice in a way sometimes where you're ready for more. I hope that makes sense. We don't look for more trauma, but we're ready for more, just in case the universe decides to test us. And so I'm talking a lot, but that also lets you know that, that I haven't disappeared or frozen. Hilarious, right? All right, one more time, bring that arm all the way around so that you feel really stretch in the shoulders. And then from here, come onto your back, hug your knees into your chest, roll around like a Tootsie Roll, help yourself up to a seat. Here in your seat, I want you to take your left hand to the outside of your right foot and then pull your ribs back like you find your cat back. And then not only do you find your cat back, but aim the stretch to your left side. So I can actually bring my elbow to the outside of the right knee and then push. Oh, it should feel good. Sometimes when I'm in a place where it's been very, very uncomfortable, rather than doing the hard poses, I just spend my whole time doing the prep. And this is a prep, obviously, for many twists. Should feel good. And then the right hand, if you can, outside of left knee, and if not, just grab the outside of the left foot, squeeze your knees together, find your cat back, like you pull the ribs in and back. And then how do you angle the stretch to the right side of your body? So for me, I squeeze the hips in and move those hips back as I twist. And it should get a good spot there for you. Feels good to me. All right, one more stretch. You take your right foot in a like a 90 degree angle, and then your left foot behind. And so you're in this kind of a pose, and then you're just gonna twist away from the legs. And so first stretch here, you can keep your hands on the ground. And if that's not enough, you put the right forearm down, keep the left arm up, and then pull yourself around. See if you can really anchor your hips and get more into the side of your body. Now, if that's not enough, you switch your arms, put the left forearm down, right hand up, and then, oh, mamma mia. And that should be something. So another secret to surviving is don't add on to your troubles. You don't take a pose deeper than you're ready or that you can handle at the moment, and come on back. So I'll just switch. You'll take your left leg forward, right leg back, and you're in this kind of a pattern. This pose has a name in yoga, but it's a very bad name, so I no longer use it. We'll just make something up. We'll call it a very bad name pose. And then you'll come and twist away from the legs. So the first level of this pose, your arms are up. Second level, you can take your right arm down, left arm up and twist. Next level, you switch your arms. Oh, goodness gracious. And so just notice, you want to always do the one, maybe that was switch. You always want to do the one, oh my goodness, this feels so good to me. That's right for you. It's not going to be a one size fits all by any means. All right. Come on back, hands to the mat, and it's downward facing dog. So hands on the mat, downward dog, go ahead and pedal your feet. And just practice with a little patience here, because what you're looking for is more, but not more in terms of a bigger pose perhaps, but more in terms of how you feel. Remember, the three qualities that make us stronger, better, and wiser is we don't treat happiness as a goal. Happiness is this dog, like God bless that we can still do a dog. Happiness is relishing the small moment, like how you feel here. And then lastly, it's making your well-being in this pose a priority. Now take your feet together and bend your knees. Bring your knees all the way to the right. And you can just stay here or do that little thing with your back where you kind of pull the ribs back, but then stick your tail out. So that you can find a little more stretch in the side of your body. So from the other way, drop heels right, pull the ribs in, and then take your tail back and up. So you're trying to find more on the left side here. Should work out well. And then come back, look forward and walk your way to the top of the mat. So I always use blocks. If you don't have blocks, it's totally fine, but I'm a block user. And that's because I can experience more in each pose when I take the pressure off to practice with a straight leg. Bend and straighten your legs. And see if this feels good. All right. And then from here, I want your feet hips distance apart. And if your hands are on the ground, that's fine. Bend your knees a lot, like you're in some kind of a Utkatasana with hands on the ground. And I want you to bump your hips all the way to the right. So you're just moving your hips right. And then from here, walk your hands left. So keep moving your hips right as your hands are left. And then if you wish, you can straighten the legs. But what I'm looking for is that you have a strong core. Pull the belly in, pull the ribs in, and then move those hips back any amount. And so by moving the hips way off of the center line, you're looking for a little more in this pose. And come on back and you can see it from the other side. So your legs are bent. Bump your hips left, like you're doing the bump. Remember that dance? Do the bump. And then you're going to walk your hands right. And this may be enough. Or you can slowly start to straighten the legs. And you might notice, one side's really different from the other. And you know, who knows why? I have two sides. One's really different. I raise both sides, both legs exactly the same. And one turns out to be really different. Never know why. And then you'll come on back. Hands to your waist, inhale and rise. Maybe we'll do a quick sun A just to warm things up. Inhale, arms high. Exhale, fold forward. Move the blocks to the side, halfway lift. Step your right leg back and bring the knee to the ground. Inhale, arms high, pull the ribs in, and again, it's just to find movement in our body. Exhale, hands to the mat, step back, downward dog. Come forward to high plank, lower yourself all the way down. Inhale to Sphinx or low cobra, whatever feels right. Exhale, lower down, make your way back, downward facing dog. Take your right leg high, bend your knee and open the hip. I'm gonna take a moment here because it's a hip flexor, hip day, and shoulders to move that knee around in the socket, move that hip around. Find some movement and some space. Now square your hips, take the knee to your nose. Inhale the leg high, and you'll step it through to lunge. Left knee comes down. Inhale, arms high, hook your thumbs or not. Again, it's just inviting movement to the practice. Hands to the mat, step forward, forward fold. Halfway lift, inhale, exhale, fold. Rise all the way up, full breath in, and hands to the heart. Pause here and just take a moment. I'm so grateful to be with all of you today, and I'm so grateful that I can simply be here. It's been that kind of year, and so this is happiness for the smallest things. Inhale, arms high, fold forward, exhale. Halfway lift. Now the left leg goes back. Drop the knee to the mat. Now this time we're going to change up this sun A. I want you to take your right hand to the right knee. Left hand, I'm going to use a block. And I want you to pull this right knee, this right foot back. And as you pull it back, squeeze your legs and take your tail back. So you're sticking it out. I have a little bit of tail these days, so you can really see how I can stick it out. So I want you to stick it out into the next zip code. Oh, and this should give you an additional awakening in your hamstring and in your hip flexor. Now, keeping this angle of having it way back, take your right hand to your right thigh, left hand high, cat your back. And then move your hip back. And so this is all you have to do. This is like plenty for many of us, or some of us can hook the elbow, clasp the hands, and then before you do what you always do, let's do it with a little consciousness. Move that right hip back. So even if you don't twist, just moving that hip back brings your torso more to the side. And then stay here. Oh, this feels so good. For 3, 2, and 1. Hands to the mat. Step back, downward facing dog. Come forward to plank. Lower down. Your choice of a back bend. It's either cobra, up dog, sphinx, and then back to downward facing dog. Left leg again, lift it up, bend your knee, open your hip. Nice circles. Find some space. And then knee to nose. Inhale, the leg comes high, and you'll step it through to low lunge. And so again, it's a little different this time. Left hand to the left thigh. I'm going to use my right hand on a block. I want you to pull the left foot down and back and move your thighs back. This is a hamstring stretch. This is a hip flexor release. This should just feel really good. Don't let your ribs collapse, pull them in. And then once you get that aligned, you can take that right arm high and then bring it to about 11 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock if your toes are 12. And you can stay here just moving your ribs back, finding that stretch, or you take the hook and then you bring your hands together and then you press your hands. And don't do what you typically do, which is to move the chest, move your thighs back, move those hips back, squeeze them in. And from there, you should find a little more release in the hips and hip flexor area. Hold for 3, 2, and 1. Hands to the mat. Step forward, forward fold. Halfway lift, inhale, exhale, and fold. Rise on up to stand, and then hands to your heart. One more moment here to find that gratitude. Inhale, arms high. Exhale, fold forward. Halfway lift, and step back this time to high plank. And I want you to come all the way down to your belly. Take your right arm to the side, palms down, and then gently twist over towards the right. Now you can stay here, and again, it's about knowing your own openness in the shoulder, or you can take your right hands into a cupcake. And so if you're holding like your right fingers like a spider finger or a cupcake hand, I call it, because I prefer cupcakes to spiders, then as you push down in your fingers, lift the shoulder blade off your back. Oh, mamma mia. And this should feel like a wonderful stretch. And you'll come on back. We'll do second side. Left arm goes out nice and long. And again, you can stay with palm down. This is plenty for most normal humans. Otherwise, you can tent your fingers like you're holding a cupcake with a lot of beautiful buttercream frosting. You can see how my mind thinks. And you're just gently finding your edge, and then you're backing off that edge. It's really important when you're going through tough times that you back off the edge. We don't invite that. Why did yoga suddenly become about getting out of balance? It should always be about finding balance. So we practice in a more humane and gentle way during difficult times. And then come on back. Place your head on a hand pillow. So one hand on top of the other. And just push your head down and notice how deeply okay you are. Notice that everything is mostly just fine, and that's taking pleasure in what we can. And then from here, you bring your hands beneath your shoulders, take a little back bend, upward dog or cobra, and make your way back to downward facing dog. Lift your right leg high and step it through lunge. Left knee comes down again. And here you can have your block handy. You can start, I'm going to give you many levels for this hip opener. You can keep your hands up. You can bring your forearms down. You can lift your back knee. And some of you can put your foot on a block. Now, the interesting thing about foot on a block, I just learned this week, is that you could also put foot on two blocks. Now, I used to describe foot on two blocks as insanity. But apparently, if you're a tall person, like I'm a very small person, but if you're a tall person, this is what you need. And so I'm talking like 5'8" and up. And so I don't need this. I know that this is not good for a person who's barely 5 foot. So here, this is what is my best place. I want you to find your best place. Now, if you put the left knee on the ground, hold your right shin in, here's your job. How far back can you move those hips? It may be a millimeter, maybe an inch, but whatever amount you can move your hips back, like you're trying to touch an invisible wall back there. That's the action that we're looking for to feel better in the hips. Good. And then from here, please step back, downward facing dog. And just take a moment and notice the difference from side to side. I feel pretty good. Step your left leg forward, right knee to the ground. So from this side, you can see first step would be maybe just hands up. Squeeze your legs into the middle, move your hips back. Maybe you can bring forearms down. I recommend always going slow, because just because you could do something on one day doesn't mean you can do it on this day. And that's called consciousness about how we feel. I'm going to go ahead and put one block under my bent leg and see how that feels. Pull low belly in and move your hips back any amount. Oh my gosh. It's just that action of moving hips back that becomes so very meaningful. And it's the smallest thing we can do for ourselves. It's the smallest thing to bring more light into our lives. It's just this willingness to find more in the prep, not even the pose. And then release all that nonsense, and it's child's pose. Knees wide, toes touch, and rest back. And so there's always more, and we'll continue to practice this. I'll tell you, this is what I know, being just about 60 in a few more weeks, which is this: a learning opportunity in our lives that rarely ever presented itself without some hard truth to go along with it. And then you can think about that. A learning opportunity never came without some hard ass truth. And then you come on up tabletop and make your way back, downward facing dog. Lift your left leg high and step it through to low lunge. Drop your right foot and come up into like a warrior one prep. And so if it hurts your back heel, you just lift the heel. Hands to your waist. And then as you have your hands to your waist, push down and then lift your torso. And so you can bend that front knee, but I'm looking for the torso length. I'm looking for you to rise up here with like a little bit of courage. And then take your hands in that mitten hand and then take your thumbs to the back of your ribs, like where a bra might be. And then from here, I want you to lift your ribs, but at the same time, pull your belly down and move your hips back. So is this the biggest back bend of your life? I think not, but I hope it's the most restorative. Keep your torso strong and bright and then lift your arms. Take a lovely stretch. And it's hands to the mat. Step straight back, downward facing dog. Lift your right leg high. And you'll step it through low lunge. Drop your back heel for warrior one, rise up. And again, this is not our best warrior one. This is our warrior one when times are tough. So we're just looking to feel better. Hands on your hips. I'm gonna actually put my hand on my front thigh and push it down, down and back. Then take your thumbs, bring them around your ribs and give them a little help to lift up. Put a low belly in and move the tail back. You can stay right here if it feels good, and then lift your arms high. I'm thinking about rebranding my classes to lots of inappropriate touching for you, by you, and for you. And then stretch, and it's hands to the mat. Step back, downward facing dog. Step your left leg forward, drop your heel. I am gonna use this block for side angle Parshvanasana. And the reason I wanted you to use a block, you don't have to, but if you have one, is to make it a little easier. And yet, that way we can work it harder in the places I'm working today, which are the difficult places, hips and shoulders. Squeeze your legs into the middle. Can you move your left thigh back? Oh, that should feel really good. Move that left thigh back. Now you can have your tailbone all the way up. Now pull the ribs in. And as you twist and lengthen the arm to the sky, think about pulling your ribs in and lengthening your torso any amount. Hold here. And then just bring hands to the ground. Now, I want you to take your left hand to the inside of that leg and your right hand to your hip. If it doesn't reach, put the hand on a block. And then from here, you'll take that left arm down and under so it's half bind. Take the right arm high, and you can stay here or take a full bind. If you stay in the half bind, that's fine. What I'm looking for is stretching the outside of the left shoulder. This feels very significant to me. Otherwise, you can hold the bind. If you have it, listen up. It's not to go any deeper, it's to move the thigh back. So as you move that thigh back, oh, the bind gives you some resistance, and then twist your torso to the sky. It should feel awesome. 3, 2, and 1. Hands to the mat, downward facing dog. We'll do the second side now. Step your right leg forward, drop the back heel. Use the block, make it easier. If you don't have a block, you're gonna be fine. And then push your arm into the knee, knee into the arm. Just move your thigh back and lift your left arm high. So notice how far back can you get your thigh here without the bind. And what I like about the binds is that it actually makes the pose so much harder, and then it makes our learning from it so much brighter. Switch now, bring both hands to the ground, move your thighs back. We did this prep. Keep your right hand down, left hand to the waist. If you can, you'll move your right hand under the leg, reach back, grab a little booty or half bind. If you can, you'll take full bind. If you can't, you just do what you can. Now here in full bind, hold on tight, move your right thigh back. And as you move your hips together and back, twist your torso to the sky. Hold here. So notice it's so much more intense. That's why we try to make our life harder on the mat. Hold for 3, 2, and 1. Hands to the mat. Step back, downward dog. And walk your hands back to your feet. Widen your feet to the edge of the mat and sit. So you're doing malasana or a crouch. So you can hold the mat here and just pull back. Oh, feels great. And so do you have to pull on your mat? No, you could just sit here and be like, oh, I'm very yogic. But if you do this, You can find more in the prep for this pose. And then hands to the mat, straighten your legs forward, fold, and stand up. So this is where if you have a couch or a big chair or a little chair nearby, I'm gonna use my yoga chair. Again, this is not mandatory. If you don't have a chair, just do the pose we just did, the prep pose of lying with your front foot forward, you'll see. Otherwise, you'll take left leg onto the chair. And again, couch, anything, a weight bench. And if you don't have it, you can skip this. It's gonna be all of 1 minute. And you'll grab your chair. And then before you do anything, you move your thighs back. I wonder if I should show you from the side. So watch, thighs go way back, and then you pull yourself down. And so you're looking where, if one stretch doesn't do it, maybe another one does. From the front, remember, if you're a normal size human, you may want 1 or 2 blocks. I am not a normal sized human. I'm fun size. That's what my husband says. I'm fun size, coming up on Halloween candy. So this is all I can take. But again, if you're a very tall person, put 2 blocks under your foot. And this should be all along the left side of your back, left hip flexor. It should feel phenomenal. And then come on out. I'm just gonna move the chair to the other side. And again, I'm gonna start without my extra height. And I'm just gonna grab this chair and pull down. It's exactly the same stretch as when we had the foot on the block in a long, low lunge. But you know what? When you change angles for your body, it changes the way your body reacts to the pose. And then your body can change as your needs change. And so that's what we're always looking for. So now I'm open. Now I go deeper with 1 block. So I'm just gonna grab onto anything I can, move your thighs back, try to get longer in the torso and more open. Feels so good, sort of. And come on out. Move your chair to the side or your props. And then just sit for a moment on your heels. That was pretty deep. You can take one hand to your heart, even one hand to your core, and just you check in. Like, are you all there? I don't think yoga practice is as successful unless you're fully in it. And you can feel all the little things that you're asking of yourself. And you're fully in it, body, mind, and spirit. And it's hard when you've had the bottom taken out. And so the good news about losing everything, because I have been there, which is that if you're still here, then you have everything you need to move forward. And sometimes you just need to give yourself a little hug like this to reassure yourself that that's the case. And then from here, scoot your hips to the side and bring your legs up. So I'm going to do it from the side. And so the first pose here is my teacher, Amy Apolte, called this mud flaps. So you sit here, you lift up and move your hips back. Move your hips back and then try to be as tall as you can in your torso. Bring your fingers behind you and shoulders way back. Now, as you drag your hands forward, move your shoulders back, pull the ribs in. This is kind of complicated. Like, don't just pop them out. Pull the ribs in so that you lift your heart with strength and courage and not just any kind of a collapse. Then take your right foot up to the left knee. This is figure 4. And so figure 4 is an interesting pose for me. I have new knees. And so some days I'm here and other days I can lift up and walk straight into the heel. But it doesn't count unless I can keep my back straight. So if you're like this, then walk back. Come back to where you can keep your dignity in the pose, your heart lifted, and a strong, strong core. Now take your right hand to that right foot, the lifted foot, and you're not going to go anywhere. You're just going to sit taller. And as you pull the foot back, like we've just been doing, push the foot forward. So you're pushing back and pulling forward, and then twist over to the left. So this is just a warm-up twist, that's all. Try to stay as tall as you can. And then come on out. Lengthen your legs, shake it out. And rejoice, we have a second side. So pull your feet in, left foot up in a figure 4. Keep this foot, this is just good mechanics. Keep this foot really flexed. And so again, with new knees, I take this pose one day at a time. I can stay here, I can lift up. Maybe I can get all the way to my other heel, and some days I can't. But that's what's called being a really good yogi. You have to listen hard, listen to what your needs are, both emotionally and physically. Both are relevant. And if something feels too traumatic, then it's maybe for another day. You know, like the day when you won the lottery. All right, right hand stays behind left hand to the left foot. And the goal here is to sit tall. So as I pull the foot back, I'm pushing the foot forward. And then I'm enabling a little more twist. Feels so good. Don't let any collapse happen. Keep your torso tall and straight and strong. And then come on back. Shake out your legs. All right, hug those knees in. And this is very optional. You're going to take your left arm up and you're going to move it across. And so we've done this a few times. You lift the left arm. If your feet are at 12, you're going to take it to maybe 2 o'clock and hook. And then the first level, I might use a block to get more height. Block under the right hand, twist. And so this is really what I'm looking for. So I'm looking for the outer hip kind of sensation on the side of your body. But if you want to challenge yourself, you can plant your hands and keep your elbow or tricep tucked against your knee, and you just lift your butt. And this may be where you stay. And so if your knees are together and they're against your tricep, you're going to move your hips away. And as you move the hips away, you're going to twist your torso. Oh, it feels so good to the right. And then some of you may be encouraged to lift your feet. And this is side crow. And so that's the classic side crow taught by Iyengar, with the feet together and you lift them up. If you feel compelled to do the scissored thing where you separate your feet, be my guest. You're more than ready. I'm not ready. I've had the hardest year. And so that's part of the wisdom of getting a little older. Switch your sides. So now the right arm comes up and you take it to 10 o'clock. So if your feet are 12, you're going to 10. Pull your ribs back. Maybe you can take that bind. From here, move your hips back and lengthen your torso. So this may be enough. People who stay here get 100% of what the people who go further get. We just are maybe not into it this day. Otherwise, you can keep that hook and plant your hands. And then you stay right here. Watch, I'm going to crouch and I'm going to repeat. Squeeze in, lengthen. And so these little prep actions, this is where the heart of the pose is. And then if you're ready, you can lean way forward and lift up your little feet. Try to bring feet to the tail. Try to straighten the arms. Try to do all that. All that and more. And then when you're done, take a comfortable seat. And again, hands to your heart and hands to your belly, and just check in. Just check in. I love this quote. Every scar, it tells a story that says, I survived. Like everything on your body, it's not a mar. It's a thing that says you survived that. And I think that's a very cool way to look at some of our traumas. You know, bring your legs forward. And again, we could sit here like whatever, but take your fingers, maybe they're in spider hands, like a cupcake, bring them behind you, lift your shoulders. Move your chest forward, but pull the ribs in and belly in. It takes a lifetime to learn how to lift your heart, not just lift it in a vulnerable way, but lift it with courage and strength connected to the whole core. And then you'll pull the right leg in, give it a snuggle. And so here with the right leg in, see if you can get that heel as close to your tail and the left leg is strong, foot is flexed. And then it's the same actions you've been doing all day. Keep your right hand on the right knee, left hand to the left foot, and then pull your hips back. So this should give you the juice. Right here is all you need. From the side, if you want to see it, how I'm working. So this is typical. And then this, all I'm doing is moving my thighs back and lengthening the torso. And that's a lot of work. If that felt good to you, you can take that right foot into your right hand and then just start to move it back. This is called a Karnadanyarasan, which is a bow pose, an archer's pose. Here's what I like. This is called come to the phone pose. Hello? And then this is full pose, fingers to the toes, foot to the head. But this pose here is just a delight. It's called open up your hips at as tall as you can pose. And then extra credit, this is just for fun. You swing your shoulder underneath the knee. You've done so much. Lean forward, but wait. Hands to the mat, but wait. Move your hips back. Move your hips so far back that you could almost put your head on the ground. And then from here, you lift up, maybe Ekahasta Bhujasana. Come on out. Shake it out. Check in. And hug your left knee in. Feels so good. And so when I hug that left knee in, I'm just grabbing the knee and I'm moving hips back. Like, oh. Now at my age, it's like the Tin Man. Like I'm like, Maybe you can bring your right hand to the right foot. Move those hips back. Like you're arching your back here. How much? A millimeter, like the tiniest amount. Oh. Here's another thing I like about when you lose everything, which is that it's a time for all new beginnings. Every time we start a pose, let's say after illness or injury, it's a chance for a new beginning. Sometimes the mind goes to this place, let's do the archer prep. Sometimes the mind goes to the place of, I lost something. But I think that 10 to 30% of people who come out better, they come out and instead of saying, I lost this pose, they say, how can I work this pose with my new circumstances? So this is called telephone, hello? No, I have no more money. I was talking to my son. I'm sorry, mommy's out of money. Take your right fingers to the right toes, and this is the pose, full pose for high achievers, knee over the shoulder. And so you're here, and you just lean forward. Because that's the juice. When you lean forward, move your thighs back, that's the beauty. And then from here, push down the hands, and maybe you lift up. Ekahasta Bhujasana. Come on out and just sit for a moment. Anything that's comfortable. Hand to your heart and hand to your low belly and just check in. You know, like you've made it. You have made it. And then from here, lie all the way down on your back. And then gently rock your knees side to side. There's a lot of forward folding, a lot of hips and shoulder work. And so I want to do a little front line opening so that we feel balanced. Remember, yoga was not supposed to be something that brings us out of balance. It's supposed to bring us into balance. Walk your feet into where it's comfortable for bridge, fingers to your toes. Now, I like this. When I'm working my hip flexors, I like it with a block in my thighs because it keeps my groins out of the picture. Otherwise, my groins take over and they want to be the thing that lifts up. But in fact, it's your whole back body that should be strong and engaged. Elbows to your side, pull the ribs down. Oh, that's new. And then lift your hips. Now pause. Pull the ribs down, but lift your chest. You get the rest of your life to figure that out. Squeeze the block. Walk your hands in. If you can clasp them. If your hands are clasped beneath you, push your wrists down, forearms down, lift up a little higher, but resist in the ribs. The ribs are the worst, so we set them first by pulling them down and in to remain connected to our source. And then from here, come on down. You can knock your knees together, bring your feet to the outer edges of your mat. Waggle the knees back and forth. Keep your feet on the outer edges of the mat. Drop knees left. Take your left foot to the top of your right knee or quad. And then pull your ribs down and back as you stretch the knee away from you. And again, extra juice, take your right arm long by your ear on the mat. This should feel so good. Right into the areas where we worked. And then we'll switch. So we start with feet wide on the edges of our mat. You drop your knees right. Take your right foot to the top of the left knee. Pull your ribs down and away from the knees. And for extra juice, stretch your left arm long as you stretch the left knee away from your arm. Sometimes I think, I wish this is the one thing I knew when I was starting my yoga practice at the ripe old age in my 40s. And the one thing I think I knew was that not only wasn't it about the pose, but that it's not even just about the practice and the repetitiveness. I wish I knew that it was about how it made you feel. I would have felt a lot better in my body a lot earlier had I understood that. You can come on back. And then from here, you'll hug your knees into your chest, roll around, relax your low back, reach up, grab your feet, happy upward facing baby. My babies did this. I don't know if yours did. One more twist. Take your right knee over the left. Drop your feet. So it's like a half eagle bind. Drop your hips to the right and gently drop your knees left. So you're in an eagle leg. Keep your shoulders on the mat. Again, a little extra. Take the right arm long. Even more extra. Take your right hip, your top hip down and away using my hand. It should feel good. You come on back. We'll do one more side. Legs up the wall. Left leg wraps over the right. Drop your feet. Move your hips left. Drop your knees to the right. Take your left arm long. Take your right hand in your mitten grip. Push that hip away and stretch. When you're ready, come back to the center. Hug your knees in. And for today, do take your forehead to your knees and just snuggle in, check in. Notice that in this moment, you're deeply okay. And then stretch out long for Shavasana. I love this quote from George Foreman. He's the one who was a boxer, but most of you probably know him from The Grill. So he was a prize-fighting boxer, and he says this, he says, heroes have their scars, some you can see, and some you read about later on. And so as you settle into your Shavasana, I want you to know that I know that all of us have our scars. All of us had something happen in our life. All of us survived something earth-shaking, really difficult, and only 30% of us came out of it better. And so my deepest hope for all of us is that we're in the 30%, that we invite more people to join us in post-traumatic growth. I'll take you out in just a minute. We can say goodbye. Shavasana. I think the greatest joy of Zoom that's brought to my life is that you can turn me off. You can stay here as long as you might like. You can also close with us, and this is all your choice. If you wish to close with us and say hello to everybody and see my cute outfit again, wiggle your fingers and toes. And stretch your arms and legs away from each other and invite the breath to fill your spirit and your body and all of it. And then gently draw the knees into your chest and roll to one side. And then from here, help yourself up to a comfortable seat. And I always close my practice, so you'll just bring your hands to your heart. And in closing, I'm going to remind everyone, these are the 3 characteristics of the people who grow from trauma. Number 1, they don't treat happiness as a goal. They squeeze every bit of pleasure they can out of every moment. 2, they tend to relish even the smallest moments. They relish your eggs at the breakfast, or they relish this one tiny bite of chocolate, or they relish being with the people they love. And 3, they make their own well-being a priority. I wish for each of you this week that you do those 3 things, or at least some aspect of them, and that you start to feel a little bit better about whatever circumstance you find yourself. Have a wonderful week. Namaste. And I invite you to unmute yourself, because I've been talking a lot.
Thank you, Michelle. That was a wonderful class.
You're welcome. How about this outfit, Kira? Thank you.
Oh my gosh,
Guys,
I love it.
Look at this. Can you see the pattern? Is that adorable? It's, what do you call that?
It's our navy Glen plaid. Yeah, that collection just launched this week.
This is the Glen plaid.
Yeah.
God, I love it. And this is the navy top. Now, for those of you who are yoga teachers, very handy to have a high neck top.